What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back, we could say, with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, the salary cap amount was released. We know what the salary cap number is going to be set at for this year's offseason, and we're going to dive into what that means for the Detroit Lions. So this will hopefully be a kind of short in and out type of video. This doesn't need to take extremely long here, but I did want to kind of just update the Lions' current salary cap situation. With that being said, a lot of things are going to change very fast. That's kind of how the offseason goes, where we're constantly updating how much money the Lions have left, how much money the Lions have left, and we'll continue to do things like this. But this is like the perfect opportunity to just kind of lay the foundation where we're at right now officially, since the salary cap number has been released of what it's going to be. Now, every team is going to have essentially a little bit of a different salary cap amount. Did they roll over a little bit of money from the last year? How much did your team roll over? So it can change kind of what that salary cap number is set at. Now, we do know this about rollover cap through the 4-year period. You have to spend 89% of your cap space, at minimum 89%. So that is a factor too. You can't just continuously roll over like, I'm going to roll over $50 million every single year. Like, nah, you still got to spend that 89% of the cap over the 4-year period. I don't know the exact amount that the Lions actually rolled over from last season, but I think we can make kind of an educated guess based on what the salary cap number is just set at. We'll also kind of take a look a little bit at some of the players that are currently under contract. I know there's been a lot of talk about how can the Lions save money. Well, one, they're probably going to do some things to save money, whether that's when they sign new players, they're going to backload deals a little bit like we've continued to see, but also leaving somewhat of an out kind of in the back end of the deal. We've seen that a ton with a lot of the contracts that they've given out, and we'll actually take a look at a few examples in this video. But let's start here first, and as you can see, the base salary cap right there, according to Over the Cap, and it was reposted by Bleacher Report first, and I think they were using Over the Cap, so this is why I'm using it. $255.4 million is what the salary cap is set at. Now, that's through a whole bunch of different venues, whether that be media, playoff. Like, the NFL makes their money. That's what the salary cap is going to be set at. And that specifically is what teams use to sign players, right? To add players to that cap. And now, during the offseason, we know only the top 51 actually count towards that salary cap numbers. Now, what does that mean for the Lions? Where are we at? Well, as you can see, we're up near the top, $63.74 million. Again, this number will change a ton. A couple things to keep in mind with this. Number one, I don't believe Over the Cap is actually including Michael Badgley yet, and we heard yesterday that he was re-signing a 1-year deal. Now, how much? I don't know. I'm assuming it might not be much more than a minimum type of deal. It actually might be a minimum type of deal for Michael Badgley, so we'll move over and we'll take a look at that here in a second, so keep that in mind. It also lists how many players are actually under contract, and the Lions at 45 would be tied for the least amount in the NFL here at 45, but if Badgley signed, then I guess it's a little bit more. But, as I said, 8th in the NFL, $63.74 million. Now, all these websites will have a little bit of different numbers. These things change very fast, so just keep that in mind. However, you can also then take a look at, and this is the one I love to look at, effective cap space, which essentially means the Lions are going to stay in 8th, $55.9 million. What is that? That's basically if an NFL team were to get to 51 players by just giving out the minimum they had to, minimum deals to get the 51 players under contract, because that's what counts against the cap. That's how much cap space you'd have, is $55.9 million. I think that's important, especially when we don't have a ton of players under contract. But what really does stand out is you can see there's a gap here between us with the Raiders, and there's also a little bit of a gap here behind the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, what is included here is the Tracy Walker cut. He is no longer listed on Over the Cap, so I do believe that they are including him in this as well. And then finally, you have the dead cap to take a look at. And the dead money at $23 million. Down where that dead cap comes from, of course, most recently was the Tracy Walker cut, and this is what happens, right? You could still save some money towards the end of contract, but a guy like Walker, you still cut him on the extension that you ended up giving him. You ended up restructuring the deal at one point, so you have some dead money, $7.3 million. He had a void year next year. That prorates, and it moves up to this year, so that speeds up the process. Once you cut him, it's like, all right, that's not something that you're going to have to deal with next year. Now you got to deal with it now, and that does show up in the books right now. So there's still $7.3 million in dead cap there. Out stuck on here, right, whether that be Romeo Quora, CD Deuce, Charles Harris. You have a lot of void years that are kind of making up a lot of these numbers that are on this list. Of course, you have Marvin Jones. That was kind of a weird situation that ended up happening. And then some guys that were just cut, during the season. So there's technically some dead money if they got some guarantees. And we know during the offseason, right, we'll like sign an undrafted free agent. We'll be like, man, he got like $10K guaranteed. Well, there you go. All right, the guy got cut, then it's technically dead money. So we'll throw that in there. So yes, the Lions dead cap number is set pretty high. Now, here, as you can see on this side of things, I did include Michael Badgley, and you can see how it would affect the cap space. I don't know what that number is going to look like in terms of his cap number this year, but just signing him on the minimum, $1.125 million, that's what the cap number then goes to. So Lions, they have a lot of money to spend, we'll say that. Now, look at a list like this, and now the thing to keep in mind with this is not everybody that's actually signed. We've had futures deals, we've had some little movement taking place, but basically the point is while the Lions don't have a ton of guys under contract, what they do have is they have a lot of their core pieces. And I think this kind of just outlines that, right? Quarterback, you have your quarterback under contract this year, even though the extension talks are going to be the key. Really, we're going to hear that a lot this offseason, but he is still under contract for next season. The Lions don't have to do anything with that if they don't want to. You have your top 2 running backs under contract. Fullback, you don't technically have a fullback, but again, those guys don't get They're not going to break the bank. Okay, I'll say that in terms of cap it. Tight end position, you have Laporta, rookie deal. You have Mitchell, rookie deal. And receiver, J-Mo's on his rookie deal. Kylie Freeman got an extension before the season started. Amon-Ra St. Brown, final year of his rookie deal. Now, this is where we start to talk about that 2021, that first draft class for Brad Holmes starts to kind of come into play a little bit, because now is the first opportunity for those guys to negotiate and look for an extension. The Lions can do that now. They don't have to, but they can get on top of that. And then also, the first-round pick, Penei Sewell that season, 5th-year option. Lions will have to make a decision on that after the draft. Key there is that none of those guys are under contract, of course, next season from that first year's draft class. But you wouldn't really save money from like, okay, hey, Penei Sewell, we're going to extend you here. You're not necessarily going to save money. There's not really any base salary towards this contract anyway. Continue on to see offensive line. We have a lot of the core pieces under contract. We talked about guard. You also on the right side here, again, I don't think everybody should be listed here. However, you have guys like KO'd, for example, an exclusive rights free agent, right? You know, no guarantees there, minimum type of contract. You can get that guy back, add some depth back into the mix. So all these ERFAs, man, I assume most of them will be brought back, maybe not all of them. Most of them. You also have your restricted free agents, right, where you can place the tender on those players. And then, of course, you just have your straight unrestricted free agents that don't have anything listed by them. And obviously, they can go out there and they can negotiate with any team that they want to. And the Lions don't have really any kind of pull to that. They just can negotiate with whoever they want to. And on March 11th is when we can start to get those negotiations between players and teams. But for the offensive line position, it's really about the guard play. Also, Taylor Decker is on the final year of his contract. So is Penei Sewell, unless the Lions pick up the 5th-year option. So they have that choice as well, which will be near the top of the market because of what he's already accomplished in the NFL. However, for one season. However, again, Taylor Decker is probably the key one here because he is under contract, but he is someone that if the Lions were potentially looking to extend, there actually could be a way to save some money with his contract through an extension. The Lions could look into that. Defensive line, again, a lot of your core pieces you're hoping. Ali McNeil specifically, but again, final year of his deal. Same thing with Levi, both from the same draft class. I don't necessarily think Levi's going to get an extension here, but, you know, at the end of the year, could he? Yes, maybe, but not early. Broderick Martin, of course, we just drafted him. Hutchinson, Kaminsky, Pascal. Key one there, John Kaminsky. We'll talk about him in a second, but John Kaminsky, the way that his cap number is set up, again, it was kind of backloaded when he got the extension. However, there's an out for the Lions, and that was kind of set up. So while the cap number is risen, it also leaves kind of an out for the Lions, and they've done that. But again, as I always say, it's really about timing. These guys getting paid, right? It's not like, okay, hey, the quarterback's getting paid this much this year versus last year. It's like, all right, if he's getting paid a ton, is everybody else also getting paid a ton? It's really about just working out the timing of it. Outside linebacker, technically don't have anybody, but James Houston, again, another exclusive rights free agent. Assume he'll be brought back. I guess you can include Derek Barnes in that group as well if you want to list him there. But linebacker, Anzalone's under contract. Rodrigo, rookie deal. Campbell, rookie deal. Barnes, rookie deal. Final year of his deal. At cornerback, you're a little bit lighter. Sutton, of course, he got his extension, so he's under contract for 2 more seasons. Really no out this year, but next year there potentially is. You have a guy like Stephen Gilmore, who the Lions just kind of kept around, so he's still technically under contract for that 3-year span. And then Brian Branch on his rookie deal as well. And then at safety, Ify Melifonwu, final year of his deal. He'd be someone to kind of keep an eye out, potentially getting extension. I don't necessarily expect that because he hasn't played a ton, but he is someone to kind of keep an eye on here because maybe the Lions can get a better deal if they do it early and he really balls out this year. Kirby Joseph, and then, of course, now you have Michael Badgley into the special teams unit. Final thing that I just thought I'd throw up here just to kind of take a little bit of a quick look at it would be the Lions contract situations. As I said, you have to throw Michael Badgley into this mix. We're on 2025. Michael Badgley into this mix. And then also you have a guy like Taylor Decker, who, as I touched on, you can see how high his base salary, pushing $13 million. He's someone that on the final year of his deal. Now, there is a void year on the final year of his deal. That's why he still pops up here, $3.9 million. He's someone that the Lions wanted to extend at 31 years old. He's someone where maybe you could drop that if you wanted to save some money through the extension. by essentially just saying, okay, this is your base salary. We're going to throw guarantees onto that deal as usual. We could drop down your base salary, and we'll now spread that out through the contract. The issue is we don't have years under contract. You can't spread it out anywhere outside of void years. So now you're putting money into a spot where the guy's not under contract. So it could give the Lions a better alley to potentially say, hey, we want to drop that cap number. We also want to bring you back and extend you for multiple seasons. That's a way that you can do it. That's been a lot of the talk also with Jared Goff. I'll give you an example here. You can see his cap number set at $32.3 million. It's not that crazy, to be honest. Next season it's going to be like middle of the pack, and he's really not above that many quarterbacks that are legitimately getting paid. So his cap number is actually not that high at all, really, this next season. Not for the production that he gives, not really at all. But again, the Lions could have flexibility because his base salary is so high at $22.3 million. And again, this was the deal that we know that was given LA Rams. But with Jared Goff's contract, what's interesting is that there is no void years to his contract, but have the ability to drop that cap number by, again, kind of dropping the base salary if they wanted to, and then just saying, okay, here's a signing bonus, because there's going to be a big bonus that goes along with a quarterback type of deal. And we're just going to spread that out now because you have multiple remaining deals. And the Lions could look at doing that. The more years you have in a contract, the more it spreads out. The downside, as we know, is that once you do that, if you have to get off that player early, now it's much harder to get out of the deal because now there's more dead cap to it, right? It's harder to move the piece, and then you're also saving a lot less because, again, all of that's going to accelerate. So you can always move around contracts, right? We hear that. You can get out of deals, but there also is risk to it as well, right? If I give him a huge signing bonus and we want to move off next year and he's signed on a 4-year deal, you're dealing with a lot of dead cap. Like, you're dealing with a lot of dead cap, and sometimes we'll just eat it because once you eat it, boom, you move on, right? And say it's $70 million. We'll take it on the chin. This year, we'll just paying $70 million to essentially a guy that's not here, and you eat that and you move on. They don't have to deal with it going forward, but it is an option. Will the Lions have to do things like that? Not necessarily, and they'll always find a way to, create cap space. We had the Tracy Walker cut, saved us $5.5 million, but as I said, the downside, $7.3 million in dead cap. It made sense. The other one that stands out to me and just a potential pure cut, I don't think it'll happen, but it would be John Kaminsky. Because, again, $4.6 million saved if cut, according to Over the Cap, with only $1.7 million. That would be dead cap. So, as you can see, the Lions could save a nice chunk of change if they wanted to go that direction. I would be a little bit surprised if they did. I would be pretty surprised, actually, if they did that. I don't really expect an extension coming for John Kaminsky. Could they try to restructure his deal to save money? Yes. But, again, he's not under contract beyond this year. So now you're just throwing it directly into a void year, which he wouldn't be under contract for. So I don't think much is going to happen here. The only thing that feels maybe reasonable if they were like, hey, let's do a little pay cut. But obviously both sides have to agree to that. So I don't think much is going to happen with Kaminsky, but he is kind of the most interesting piece here. And then finally, to kind of wrap this all up, when you talk about that rollover cap, which, at one point last year was like, Lions are going to have a lot of rollover cap, but ended up that they didn't end up with a ton of rollover cap because they continued to make moves. And that's why you have to have cap space during the season, because you continue to make moves, add new players. You're going to eat up some of that cap. $2.43 million rollover cap. If you just do the math of the team's salary cap minus what we know it's set at, which is $255.4, that's kind of the range that the Lions would be in. It was also projected early in February that the Detroit Lions were going to have about $3.5 million in rollover cap, so it definitely could have just been less than that the Lions ultimately ended up rolling over. So they didn't roll over seemingly a ton of cap space here. Lions are in a pretty good financial spot from the way that it looks. Just the core pieces they have under contract at a lot of spots, and the Lions still do have a good amount of salary cap to work with. They have a really good amount of cap space to work with this offseason. But then again, you have to keep cap space more so than just free agency. You have to have it during the season. You also have to have it for injuries. You have to have it for the draft class, which is projected that the Lions' resources would be about $8.6 million to the draft class. Now, the key to that is, and you can't see it on here because Lions don't have 51 guys under contract, but again, once you hit that top 51, it's no longer counting towards the contract. So as you see, 46 players under contract. Okay, so they did count Banjo. They just didn't put them on here. Now, all of a sudden, anything below that doesn't actually technically count towards the cap, the salary cap number. However, the key to that is that with the draft class, for example, if you said Michael Badgley got this minimum deal and his cap, it was 1.125, it's currently projected that our third pick in the draft would be a $1.124 million cap number. So technically, if we didn't move at all, only the first two cap numbers would likely, we could see, it would likely actually count towards the cap, which would be $2.64 million and $1.239 million. So again, not a ton going there necessarily, but it is something they have to keep money for that side. And then also undrafted free agent guarantees, things like that as well. So that's where the Lions are at. I think they're in a really nice financial spot. Personally, I think we're going to see a lot of similarities to years past in free agency. And, the Lions will be smart about it. They're not going to go out here and just give out ridiculous deals over and over because they don't necessarily have to. They just follow the plan that they continue to do, and it works, right? And I know I hear it all the time, like, oh, man, how can we create the most salary cap space? And they will do some things. But it's not just about, like, let's get the biggest number, because there's always the flip side to that. You're not just getting this out of nowhere. You're either cutting a player, you're adding guarantees to a guy's deal. This money isn't coming from nowhere. It's going somewhere, and there's risks down the road with that. The Lions are in a good cap space situation right now, and a lot of it's going to be about those extensions. First-year draft class, Jared Goff, then, of course, bring back our guys that are unrestricted free agents this offseason. So I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.